Am I the a-hole for calling divorce immediately after finding out my wife emotionally cheated on me? I found out my wife was cheating on me emotionally last week. I found it through a notification when she was in the shower. We are both 33 and married for 6 years. In my eyes, everything was good. Funny how one can hide their betrayal without other party noticing. I confronted her right away and told her to open the phone to show me the messages. She refused first but gave up after I told we are getting a divorce. The texts were not that old and there were not many. It was obvious most of the texts were deleted. I asked her questions about the affair: why, who, where, how. I will not go into details as I want to stay anonymous, but I was trickle-truthed in the end. She got caught and trickle-truthed me. I do not believe her and what she said about the extent they went. At the beginning of our relationship, I made it very clear that cheating in any form is a relationship ender. I told her to get a lawyer because we are getting divorced. She asked for marriage counseling, promised to change, and even make her life completely dependent on me, leave the job, not leave the house, and give me all of her digital devices. I told her where marriage counseling would help was before she decided to have an affair. We could go to marriage counseling and solve the problem there by talking whichever problem she had. Instead, she went on to have an emotional affair and made sure to actively hide things from me by deleting texts and trickle-truthing. I reminded her my boundaries and what I told her about them in the beginning of the relationship. I will hand the divorce papers to her this month, and she is telling me to reconsider. Am I the asshole in this situation? Edit. Nudes, sexting, and I love yous all over. I do not know the real extent of the relationship. She revealed information bit by bit after I pushed. I am not even sure if I know the full extent of the relationship even now. She told me she felt lost in her life and wanted attention from others. I do not think that's anything to do with unhappiness in the marriage unless she lied. I guess you can never know the problem unless the other party communicates. Not the a-hole at all. You were clear from the beginning that cheating in any form was a deal breaker, and she chose to cross that line anyway. That just shows either she has no respect for you or she thought you'd just roll over and accept it. The deleting messages and trickle-truthing make it even worse. She would not come clean even after her lies came out. Counseling is something you do before betraying trust, not after getting caught. Just because she doesn't like the consequences doesn't mean that she won't have to face them. Comments. If there's no evidence that she ever hooked up with the person she was texting, you might want to try therapy/marriage counseling. Life is filled with possibilities, some of them good, some of them bad. You were happy in the marriage for 6 years. You may not be able to find another partner who's better and end up alone long term. The fact that she seems willing to do anything to save the marriage is a good sign. Good luck whatever choice you make. Not the a-hole. The trickle truth is the problem that makes reconciliation a non-starter. You can't trust her. All the things she is willing to do now are band-aids. Who wants to be married with someone who can't have a life outside of you because they may cheat again? She made her choice. Don't let her drag out the inevitable. You're the a-hole for wasting her time in the first place with a criteria so fragile that at some point during the expected lifetime of being together, you were bound to perceive emotional cheating. OP, follow through with the divorce so she can move on, but please never get married again. You can't do shit like this to people. I mean, you kind of sound like an asshole. Seems like an awful lot of telling and treating her like property. Not a lot of listening or treating her like an equal. Also interesting how she immediately offered to give up her career and basically be your servant. I'm thinking she must have had a hint you'd kind of like that. Emotional cheating? Jesus. In that case, every man should divorce a woman who watches soaps or has a work husband. I can see why she found someone else to talk to, as you're a crybaby cliff jumper. Your whole attitude comes off as vengeful, like you're such an angel after 6 years. How did you fuck up that she's found someone else? How about having a real conversation with her and finding out why she's done with you instead of crowing to every stranger on the internet what a victim you are? Sadly, it'll be a while before you'll get an honest answer, as you're too emotionally immature to handle it. Story 2. My husband and I were married for several years. I do admit I was checked out long before I crossed any physical lines. I didn't communicate my frustrations to him, though. I didn't ask for counseling. I just let resentment and boredom turn into entitlement. which I now understand is one of the most dangerous mindsets you can have. I met the other man on Tinder. I remember telling myself it was just to see what was out there and that I deserved to feel wanted again. I set my profile carefully without including last name, added vague photos, nothing that could tie back to my real life. From the start, I acted smartly and diligently to protect myself, not anyone else. I always wanted to go to his place. I never invited him to mine. If we went out, it was always out of town. Restaurants where I knew I wouldn't run into friends or coworkers. I told my AP it was spontaneity or preference, but it was calculated. Every choice I made was about avoiding consequences while still getting what I wanted. We dated for about 4 to 5 months. During that time, I slept with him multiple times. Every time I went home afterward, I looked my husband in the face and acted normal. I answered his questions. I accepted his affection. I compartmentalized so hard that I almost believed my own lies. That's one of the hardest things to admit now, how easily I split my life in two. Eventually, my husband found out because he called the other man. I had left enough breadcrumbs apparently that my husband already suspected something. Hearing him talk to the man I'd been lying to both of them about was the moment I lost control of the narrative completely. They met in person. From what I was told later, the other man explained everything. How we met, how long it went on, that he had no idea I was married. I'm told he apologized and took accountability for his part once he knew. That hurts to admit, because he showed more integrity in that moment than I had in months. Cried, I begged. I said all the cliche things cheaters say when they're exposed instead of honest. But nothing changed my husband's resolve. We are now in the process of divorcing. It's final. He's not changing his mind. Trust is gone, and I understand that love without trust isn't something you can rebuild on sheer regret alone. I've moved out and am currently staying with a friend a couple towns over. The silence is loud. This is the part no affair fantasy prepares you for. Being alone with yourself once there's no one left to deceive. Hey man. The other man ended things immediately when he learned the truth. He told me he wasn't interested in cheaters. That hurt really bad, but I respected his opinion. I admitted to him I never wanted to hurt him and offered to stay friends going forward. But he never responded to that. It's like I was of no use to him anymore. I've heard through the grapevine that my husband and he are actually on decent terms now. Strangely, I'm glad for that. At least one small thing came out of this without more bitterness. I'm starting therapy. I need to understand why I gave myself permission to hurt people in my life. I don't want to be this person again. I broke a home. I damaged people who trusted me. I'll carry that for a long time. All I can do now is own it fully and make sure I don't repeat it. If anyone here is early in their wayward journey, secrecy feels powerful until it costs you everything. And when it does, you don't get to choose the aftermath. Thanks for reading.